In today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any communications this evening?
Yes, there are. Greendale High School Commencement 2025 is set for Saturday, June 14th at 11 a.m. The ceremony will be held at Gavinsky Stadium and is also live streamed on the district's YouTube channel. And with that, congratulations to all of the newest GHS alumni and their families. And I'd just like to give a special shout out to our student board member, Nick Galusha. Tonight is his last board meeting, and we appreciate your service to our board over the past 2 years, as well as the beautiful courtyard that you leave behind and the leadership at school and in the community. I know that your volunteerism and your leadership will continue in our community well past graduation, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors. I have a certificate of commendation for you, and there is a card from the board. We would save it to graduation, but you got a lot on your plate that day, so. Final commendation. Your second and last picture as a painter. Yeah, not going to class. It'll be like 100 on the Great, thank you. Thank you. Tuesday, June 10th, over 120 members of the graduating class will visit their elementary schools for the annual graduation walks, dressed in caps and gowns and holding signs to introduce themselves to students and teachers. The graduates will walk the halls to cheers and well wishes. Watch the district YouTube channel on Tuesday evening for a video capturing this beloved annual event. Also on Tuesday, June 10th, the 8th graders will celebrate their completion of 8th grade and their transition to high school at Gavinsky Stadium in the evening. J.C. Park's renovation is almost complete. The Park and Recreation team is planning a ribbon cutting and grand opening on the last day of school, Wednesday, June 11th at 2:30 p.m. Immediately following, the Greendale Education Foundation will host its annual Schools Out event on Broad Street in the Village from 3 to 7. I would like to thank an anonymous donor for donating $964.50 to the district's effort to reduce outstanding student fees for graduating seniors. And College Park received a $400 grant from the Steuben County Community Foundation that will be used in the library for both students and teacher support. This grant was secured through the Eric Stoffborough and Haley Jo Geiger Family Enrichment Fund. Thank you to both parties for making this donation possible. And that completes my communications.
All right, thank you for that. We'll move over to the student updates.
The GHS Student Council will hold their final meeting of the year tomorrow and will recognize members from each grade level who have contributed significantly to the Student Council. GHS Spring Athletics are starting to wrap up with a few sports still continuing into the final weeks of the school year. And then many GH seniors have been attending scholarship award dinners as part of the GHS multiple scholarship application. We as seniors are very thankful for the opportunities from our community to help pay for college. And that concludes my updates forever. I'll pass it to Noah now.
All right. So speaking of Nick wrapping up, as Nick wraps up his term as a school board contributor, the school board is in the process of interviewing candidates for our student representative for the class of 27, which will conclude with interviews on Friday. With the last week of school on the way, students have begun going to Ms. Ham's classroom to get cotton t-shirts tie-dyed as a fun way to conclude a year of hard work and effort. And that concludes my communications as well.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to comments or questions from visitors. Is there anyone that would like to speak? All right, I'm not seeing anyone, so we will move on to approving the regular meeting minutes from last meeting, May 19th. Looking for a motion.
I motion to approve the meeting minutes for the regular board meeting from May 19th, 2025.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm yes, motion passes. Moving on to new business, we need to approve the 2025-2026 board meeting dates and calendar reports.
Board took a review of the calendar, the proposed calendar of reports at the last meeting, and some changes were recommended. All of those changes were made, and it is presented for approval this evening.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
I move approval of the 2025-26 board meeting dates and calendar of reports as presented in agenda item 3.1.
I second.
Is there any questions or commentary regarding this? No? All right, we'll do a roll call.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm yes, motion passes. Moving on to approving personnel.
Administration recommends approval of personnel, including the appointment of a new assistant principal at Greendale High School, Miss Sandy Curesis, who is here with us this evening. She will be coming to Greendale from Kenosha Unified. She has a master's degree in educational administration and a bachelor's degree in special education. And I recommend approval of all items on personnel.
All right, looking to approve the personnel.
I move approval of the administrative appointment, teacher resignations, and teacher appointment as presented in agenda items 3.2A, B, and C.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or no? All right, do a roll call.
Yes.
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 And I'm yes, motion passes. Would you like to come up and say anything? You're not, don't feel like you have to. Yeah. Excellent. Well, we look forward to, well, they look forward to working with you. All right, moving on to new business information items. We have a curriculum review for social studies.
Yes, we have a number of teachers here this evening that will be presenting, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tracy Flater, who took the lead on the curriculum review this year.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As Kim mentioned, we're here tonight to share with you our work over the last 2 years in the area of social studies. I am so excited to have representatives from our team here tonight. We have Miss Sarah Franson, who is a 5th grade teacher at Canterbury. We have Miss Jen Barzak, who is an instructional support specialist also at Canterbury. Miss Megan Faraday, who is a Greendale High School social studies teacher. Mr. John Weiss, who is a middle school social studies teacher, and Mr. Mike Brock, who is the principal of College Park. So not all of them will be speaking tonight, but most of them will be speaking and sharing our work with you throughout our presentation. So to begin, regardless of the content area, our instructional non-negotiables guide us through the decision-making process. When taking part in any curriculum review, it's critical that we are looking at instruction, assessments, and materials that are aligned to grade level standards and that support the rigor of our standards. We also want to ensure that with these materials, our teachers are able to reteach to mastery of those standards as well. So the curriculum decisions that we make are then guided by those non-negotiables and are based on research, teacher voice, and student outcomes, with those standards being central. So before getting into our recommendation, let's ground ourselves in a common understanding of social studies. So taken from the National Council for the Social Studies, social studies is the study of individuals, communities, systems, and their interactions across time and place that prepares students for local, national, and global civic life. As we worked through our review, it was important that the materials we selected would encompass an inquiry-based approach through the generation of questions, through collection and analysis of evidence from primary and secondary sources, consideration of multiple perspectives, and application of the knowledge they were learning and the disciplinary skills within that. So looking more closely at our state standards for social studies, there are 26 total standards K-12, which are set across grade level bands. While ELA and math are organized by individual grade levels, social studies is organized by grade level bands. So you have a K2 band, a 3-5 band, 6-8, and then 9-12. And then those are further classified by learning priorities and performance standards. Those include a focus on inquiry practices, which are developed by the National Council for Social Studies, the College Career and Civics Life Framework, which is also known as the C3 framework. So these social studies standards are then broken into 5 strands. So you have the behavioral sciences, economics, geography, history, and political science, and then that inquiry piece is woven throughout all 5 of those strands. The strands, as you see from the graphic, they're not meant to be taught in isolation. They're meant to be overlapped for depth in content and instruction. So then we had an amazing team of educators working on our review team. And what's really cool is that all of the classroom teachers that are on this list piloted at least one different curriculum resource. So we had a vast array of knowledge and feedback on the resources that we piloted. That's pretty impressive. I thank them all for their very hard work. I'd now like to turn things over to the teachers so that they can share our vision, our process and timeline, and the recommendations and goals that we have.
Is it red or green? Might need the button on the bottom. We will assist with technical difficulties.
There. Thank you. Do this. Okay, hi, I'm Megan Faraday, high school social studies teacher and department head. And this is our K-12 social studies vision. This was put together through a collaborative process of all 612 social studies teachers in our understanding year, which was 2023-24, the year before this. So our vision is that students will be informed and engaged citizens who have developed their own worldview, fostered through rigorous and great engagement with grade level standards, content, critical inquiry and evaluation of sources, diverse perspectives, and discussion. So the first half of this vision really lays out like who we want students to be who have come through our social studies programming. And then the last part after rigorous engagement with is listing out the tools and the strategies that we use to accomplish that. And I think we have 2 good examples right over here who have both taken lots of social studies classes. So this is the timeline that we followed. That understanding year in 2023-24 is when we put together that vision and started doing some research into best practice in social studies education. And then this year, we started out with learning. Some of us have been attending the CISA 1 Social Studies Network that was created for the first time this year. We did pilot training in all of the curriculum options that we were interested in. So we had online training sessions with the various vendors, and we had lots of department and also wider social studies meetings to plan out what we were going to pilot. We did standards alignment. We piloted curriculum. As Tracy said, everybody piloted at least 1, and some people 2 or 3 different curriculum resources. And then we did consensus building about a month ago, and we are here today with our recommendation for you.
Hello, I am Sarah Franson, 5th grade teacher at Canterbury. As Megan was saying, we developed, we had that vision, we took our standards, and then we used these to help develop the rubric that we used when we were teaching our lessons. So we had our checklist, taught our lessons, and we would look for these key indicators throughout our lessons. We also had, I know personally in my class, I had several visitors during the course of my piloting that also came through to help look for these indicators, because clearly each lesson is not going to meet every one of these goals. So they would come and see the lessons in action and check them off what they would see throughout the course of the pilot.
Good evening. I'm John Weiss. I'm a 7th grade social studies teacher at the middle school, and I want to just quickly give a shout out to Tracy and Maggie for their leadership and guidance through this process with the rest of the team. It's been fun working through this for the last couple of years. So some of this has been mentioned already. We reviewed a couple of different options. Each grade span took the opportunity to pilot a couple of specific areas, including Inquiry Journeys, Teachers Curriculum Institute, that's the TCI that we'll talk about, Savvis, and Traverse. And what was fun through this process was being able to share with each other what we learned. We had the opportunity to observe different classrooms. We've also piloted the DBQ project, and I'll get a chance to talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. But we shared results with each other. We used our professional development times and our team meetings throughout the course of the year, as well as what I said. We did quite a few observations of each other in class as well. So even if we weren't piloting one of the options, we had a chance to see it in action.
Okay, so this is an overview of the 612 course sequence, and as part of our work, the GHS and GMS teams did review our current scope and sequence of our courses in conjunction with recommendations from the state and graduation requirements, state graduation requirements, and so we're making some adjustments, in particular to put greater emphasis on and more time devoted to civics education. So grade 6 is ancient civilizations, with a focus on world history, also incorporating geography. In grade 7, which has been doing U.S. history with an emphasis on the foundings, there's going to be a bit of a shift, which is U.S. history through the creation of the Constitution semester 1 and semester 2, a specific focus on civics. A lot of that content has been taught in grade 7 up until now, but there's just going to be more of an emphasis on the civics lens versus the history lens. Grade 8, U.S. history around the year 1800 through World War II. Grade 9 is global studies, or that's modern world history around the year 1400 to the present. And then we are, based on State Assembly Bill 4, which is currently in the State Senate, it's the third time in recent years that our state legislature has proposed a bill to require a semester of civics education for high school graduation, and we expect this one will probably pass. You know, of course, we don't know what will happen, but it keeps coming up, and also we value civics education. So with the resources and time we had this year to devote to reviewing our curriculum, we wanted to come back to that question of adding a civics requirement for graduation to our course sequence. So what we are recommending is that all students will take U.S. history in grade 10, whether it is regular U.S. history or AP U.S. history, to meet the 1-year U.S. history graduation requirement. And then in grade 11, students will take a semester of econ, which they currently do. That's a current graduation requirement for us, and a semester of civics. So that is an addition. And then AP Government and Politics is another AP elective we offer, so that would also satisfy the civics course requirement. And the total number of credits to graduate from high school in social studies would remain at 3. Currently, students are required to take at least 1 semester of a social studies elective, so the civics is replacing that. Yeah.
In this picture, you will see my students who truly enjoyed this pilot this trimester. We started in January, and I am happy to say we are still going strong with the pilot because we did not want to stop. So you may have noticed even in the first picture that was on the slide that they were diving for artifacts and even brought their goggles and towels to school that day and really got into the curriculum. They've done presentations and speeches and used the website, and it was an absolute joy. Not knowing from the beginning when I picked TCI what it would be like, it was an absolute pleasure to pilot. So based on our goals and our teacher rubric, the team is recommending the adoption of TCI for grades K through 8 and also for global studies, U.S. history, and civics for the high school level. And the team is also recommending the adoption of the DBQ project for grades 6 through 8 to add to their inquiry and primary and secondary source analysis and adding that to the TCI curriculum. Some of the main reasons why we picked TCI when we were going through the consensus process was because of several of these indicators. It is organized, it's easy to use, it does fall in line with the state standards, and it fits in with all the goals that we have been looking for and aligns with our vision. So it meets several of those indicators.
So I had the opportunity to pilot TCI during the months of March and April. And TCI uses a specific approach where the lessons and activities are based on 5 well-established theories. The first is understanding by design, which is essentially working backward to identify the goals. The second is non-linguistic representation, which is using graphic organizers, images, movement. The third is multimodal learning, which is using visuals, video, interactive exercises, group work, debates. The fourth is cooperative interaction, which includes mixed groups and also assigned roles. And then finally, number 5 is a spiral curriculum, which is step-by-step discovery, where we have teachers showing and students doing. I think this might be me as well. And then some of the specific strategies, and many of these we were certainly able to do during our pilot. And these include things like visual discovery, experimental exercises, social studies skill builders, response groups, writing for understanding, and problem solving group work. And what TCI does a great job of doing is weaving these throughout the lessons, so opportunities of all 6 of these occur through the variety of lessons that we provide the students.
These are the themes through the TCI curriculum from the early all the way up to 5th grade. So you can see me and my world at the very beginning, my school and family, my community, our community and beyond. 4th grade has regions of our country, which is individualized for Wisconsin. They do have resources that are individualized to the state. And then 5th grade, America's past, which covers all the way to the present. So the TCI curriculum comes with several different resources. Each teacher will get a teacher's guide, and then the students have a student journal. The student journal can all be accessed online as well. My class preferred the student journal over the online features. We use a lot of the online platform, but for the individual work and the activities, we use the activity book. But the online platform, very helpful. It has games, it has activities, it has extra reading that you can do. It has the social studies stories, which adds on a little bit more to the curriculum. It brings in more primary sources that you can evaluate. The biggest source of excitement in my class, though, has been the activity cards. In each lesson, you get to do some kind of hands-on activity. So in the beginning, when you saw them diving. They were searching for artifacts in a sunken ship from the 1500s. They have looked at mini books from different perspectives of other people who were in the 1700s and 1800s. They've played geography games, and the activity cards have been a real fun way to promote the learning and keep it going in a really fun way and working with teams. We recently just did speeches where they had to convince the judges that their piece of colonial art should be the star in the museum art show, which was really fun. So it really encompasses a lot of different aspects of the curriculum with everything that they have to offer.
So the middle school programs, you can see the ones that we will be using are in the nice big green stars. So at the 6th grade, they will work through the History Alive, the Ancient World program. We also have the United States through the Modern Times, which is what we will be using at the 7th grade level. And then we have the United States through Industrialism that 8th grade will be using. We also have the Civics Alive book. That's the one that I piloted, and I'm sorry, as well as Ms. Fonte, the Foundations and Functions. And then we also have the Geography Alive, Regions and People, where all 3 grade levels will be able to use that as a resource. And then similar to what Sarah was talking about, our program components, just slightly different than the elementary. The students at the middle school level use what's called interactive student notebook, and this is either in hard copy or an online version as well. We have a student edition textbook that is with accompanies with a teacher's guide, but all of the resources are available online, and the online platform is presented in a couple of different ways in terms of its components. So you can use essentially online the textbook version of it. So it includes all of the lessons, the readings, the questions, etc. But it also, the lessons can be presented using a kind of an activity slideshow. So they build it in with different activities. The lesson that I piloted, the hook for it was a lot of fun. We were talking about the Constitution and the struggles with ratification. The students didn't know we were going to talk about that, so we presented 13 different types of movie genres, and the students had to vote on which one we would show the class. And we quickly learned that it was impossible for us to get all 30 students to agree on one movie genre, which was a fun way for us to show how difficult it would have been for the 13 colonies to ratify the Constitution. And they also have a nice video component, so if students are out of class for any extended period, they can get a lot of the information pretty quickly in a nice video format as well.
And these are the high school programs. So the World Connections, it will be used for 9th grade global studies. And then Pursuing American Ideals will be used for sophomore U.S. history, regular U.S. history. That is a different text from the American history texts and programs for the middle school. So those are designated for the middle school level, and this is a high school level text. And then when we teach our civics class for the first time, we will be using Government Alive as the text for that class. The components of TCI at the high school are the same, pretty much the same as at the middle school level. So there we have a student edition of the text, so we'll have class sets of those. In our pilots, we found that the basic text from TCI is very usable. It is divided up into very usable chunks of information. It is straightforward and clear. It's a great thing to use to give students the background knowledge they need to then do something more active or interactive through one of the activities. So like John talked about, there's activities built into the online platform. The interactive student notebook is online. It does have reproducible notebook pages, although they're really not amazing. So we'll probably mostly use the online system. And there is assessment. There are assessment questions built into the online platform as well. So the other resource that we are adopting for grades 6 through 12, well, I guess technically 6 through 10, is the DBQ project. So this is a resource that we have been using here and there, both at the middle school and high school for years. But what we piloted for the first time this year is the online platform, and overall people have had a really great experience with it. It is by far the most versatile and adjustable online program of anything we piloted. Unlike some other online programs in DBQ Online, teachers have the choice to really pick at the granular level what we're going to include in our assignment and what we're not of all the components that they have included. I can annotate the documents that are being posted and add sticky notes or notes to students clarifying what I want you to do is this and this. I think that, how many levels at the middle school piloted DBQ project?
2.
Oh, okay, so 6th and 7th grade at the middle school, and then global studies and U.S. history, so 9th and 10th grade at the high school, all piloted DBQs, and, you know, we're really impressed with it. Students have been very engaged, and for example, the global studies classes are doing their preparation for their final exam writing right now this week, and it's not a DBQ from the DBQ project, but they're using the writing strategies from the DBQ project. So we are very excited to have this being used from 6th grade through high school, so that the terminology, the skills are all aligned, and that when students come up to the high school from the middle school, they'll have experience with this platform and terminology and be ready to really do more advanced writing, I think, than what they've been doing. Is this also me?
Yeah, but I think you talked about it.
Okay.
I think too, economics, Nicole Mobley has looked
Right.
at using them too, so it would go up through 11th grade
Yes.
as well, and civics as well.
Civics, you're right, through 11th grade, because there are now 2 binders of civics DBQs and 1 for econ, and we're excited about a lot of those topics.
And I would add too then that also the writing helps get them ready for AP, like their AP writing that they have to do.
The whole DBQ project is aligned with the way that students write in AP classes, and I would also say it will be fantastic for writing on standardized tests like the ACT as well.
Can you, I don't think you said what DBQ stands for and what the purpose of a DBQ is.
I forgot I'm not talking to all social studies people. DBQ stands for document-based question. So what that means is students are answering a prompt using documents, or in other words, primary and sometimes secondary sources as the evidence in their writing. And it is one of the main writing assessments in the AP history courses. And since it became kind of the standard in the AP history courses, that's kind of trickled down into the rest of the social studies education world, that the standard, best practice is to have students writing in a way where they use sources as evidence in their writing.
And the idea of a DBQ does support ELA standards around textual evidence and
yes, absolutely. Both ELA standards and disciplinary literacy in the social studies. And the other thing I wanted to mention about it is that it is far and away the best curriculum resource I've ever seen in terms of differentiation. So in the online platform, there are multiple types of scaffolds available. So, and we can assign them student by student. So for students with writing supports like sentence starters and checklists and all of that in their IEPs, it is extremely easy to differentiate student by student on how much support they get with their writing, and also to begin the year with giving students lots of support in their writing and gradually remove those supports as we go through the year and their writing develops. So we're very excited about that aspect as well.
John's going to share with you, thank you, Megan. John's going to share with you too the DBQ method. It's a 6-step process. I think one of the things to really think about is this is being adopted or recommended for adoption 6-12. So this is a consistent writing process that our students will start with as 6th graders. So imagine what that writing looks like when they've had it from 6th grade all the way up through their high school years.
So I'm right in the middle of piloting one of the DBQs. I was just telling Megan tonight that I'm glad that I got to do this at the end of the year, because the students, as we get to the end of the year, right, it's they're excited about the summer, but they are fully engaged in this process. We are taking the rest of the week to finish. So the DBQ that I am doing is called the California Gold Rush, and they're creating a personal journal. So the hook at the beginning was the students had to create a persona of their journey, and we read a background essay, which gave them some background knowledge of what the California Gold Rush was all about, as well as the instruction that we had done in the class up till that point, and then understanding their questions. So essentially what the students are going to be doing is creating, by the end of this week, they're going to create 3 journal articles that are divided into 3 groups. The travel, which is called Getting There, working in the mines, and then what camp life is all about. So for this one, it's there were 8 documents. This is considered a mini Q. There are DBQs that are much longer than that, and as Megan mentioned, you can choose and select the documents and the primary sources that you want to use. Right now, we are in the middle of the document analysis, which is a variety of documents. There's letters, there's journal articles, there's maps and pictures and charts. Today we looked at some photographs from that time period, and then tomorrow they're going to do the bucketing, where they take all of their information that they've gathered, they're going to put them into the appropriate categories, and then starting on Wednesday, they're actually going to do their writing of their 3 journals, and then we're going to take some time on Friday for them to be able to share. And all of that is through that one lens, which is the persona that they themselves created. So we'll have a lot of different varieties of journals that they're going to be able to share with us.
So our team is recommending an adoption total for TCI and the DBQ project of $279,260.41 for the purchase of those 2 curriculum and all the listed elective classes that were in your report. The adoption cost covers class sets of textbooks for grades 6 through 12. It covers student reproducibles at K-5, online access and student digital licenses, and those reproducibles, the online access and the digital licenses, are for 6 years. So then at this time, we're ready to answer any questions you may have.
The purchases would be split out of 2 budget years.
Correct. Because we're already utilizing DBQ, we were able to use funds from this year's budget to pay for the paper and online binders. For 6 years, yes. So we have, and one of the great things about both TCI and DBQ is that when you have their online platforms, we have access. So we're not purchasing the geography textbooks. We actually have some of them that were given to us for the pilot. We have access to all of the online pieces and all teachers. So whether they're in 6th grade or 11th grade, if they want to look at doing something out of that geography text, which we would have conversations about to make sure that we're not repeating something in grade levels, they would be able to do that. Same with the DBQs. When you order the online platform, they have access to multiple binders of different historical pieces, and there's even literacy binders as well that we're looking at utilizing in the middle school, and possibly because they align with the Common Lit novels that they're already doing.
So 2 quick questions. First one, did they look, or how do they teach the citation? Because I know they're talking about a lot of the sources. How are they incorporating the citation work into the work that they're writing? And what formatting are they following and kind of directing?
So you're talking about how students cite their sources in their writing?
Yeah.
The norm within DBQs, and this comes from AP, is for students to refer to the source in DBQ project, they're lettered. So in document A, President Johnson said blah, blah, blah. So they refer just to the number or letter of the document and the author's name. The AP style of DBQ writing is a timed writing where students do it within this class period. It's not preparing the writing ahead of time and submitting it after multiple drafts. So that's where that comes from, the fact that it's an on-demand writing situation. So then that's also trickled through to the DBQ project materials.
And then second part is they mentioned some of the Spanish translation. Would they work at cross language, utilizing some of those tools and like some of the language programs or expanding joint?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've explored that possibility at all. Both programs do support full Spanish translations, and mostly that's intended to support students who are English learners.
And one of the great things about the online platform as well is that our special education teachers, our paraprofessionals, and our English language teachers all had access to that online platform and could work with students within that platform as well.
I had a couple questions too. First, like between AP government class and your civics, like what is the overlap? Because I know if you take AP government, you don't, that counts for your civics course.
Right. The idea will be kind of the way that psychology, regular psychology, and AP psychology work now, which is that if you take AP psychology, you're not going to go and take the 1 semester of psychology, because everything in this 1 semester elective of psychology is covered in AP Psych, but not everything in AP Psych is covered in the semester elective. So with civics and AP government and politics, it will be similar. The students will all be required to take one or the other. It will be a requirement, not an elective. We would encourage students, if they take civics as a junior, say, and they're like, oh, actually, I am interested in this, then we would encourage them to take AP government and politics as a senior, because it will have some overlap, but not all. We are working on developing the actual civics curriculum. There is a scope and sequence, or an outline, a course outline developed for high school civics from the state civics fellows who developed an overall K-12 civics education scope and sequence. So we will be drawing on that to develop our specific course. In general, at this point in the process, I think I can say that both courses will cover the fundamentals of American government and politics and how to participate. We really want the civics course to have a strong component of civic participation and community engagement, and how can students learn to be active in their community and active in our government. AP government and politics has less of that aspect, just because the goal is to prepare for an exam, so there's a time pressure. And other than that, we'll figure it out as we develop the curriculum. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Also, will civics be a class that's offered during the summer, like econ?
No. That's not the plan.
Okay.
And I think with that, the civics piece, that will be covered through the state standards. There are specific state standards, which we're covering right now, but we'll be more in depth. So we're looking at depth over breadth then.
And then for like the econ curriculum, I know that's switching as well. So will that be implemented this summer already, or?
No, that would not be implemented until fall.
Do you anticipate that now that all juniors will be taking the same civics class, that some other social studies electives might be removed just because of not hitting capacity?
We're not sure what's going to happen. Students already do take more than the 3 required graduation credits in social studies on average, and we've looked at that data as we've examined this plan. So there will be a couple strange transition years. The biggest transition is that AP US history will be moving from junior to sophomore year. So there will be a year when both sophomores and juniors are taking AP US history, and everything will be a bit discombobulated for a couple of years. But then a lot of our social studies electives students take out of interest, and so we expect that they will continue to do so.
And is AP European History still being offered? I just didn't.
Yeah, it will still be offered. Currently, AP Euro is offered to sophomores as kind of an intro to AP. With this change, AP US will be the sophomore AP class, and so then AP Euro will become like a junior, senior AP elective, the way that AP Psych and AP Government and Politics are right now. Which is actually, of all the AP History classes, AP Euro is the one most frequently offered to sophomores. However, the majority of students who take AP Euro in the country are seniors. So that is more typical.
I would say, too, for those elective courses, one that we're watching would be Law and Justice, as that's typically right now taught through that civics lens. So it would either be like a complete revamp of that course and maybe looking more at like criminal law, or a discontinuation of the course altogether.
Perfect. I also love how the DBQs are digital now. You can just focus on writing instead of how much your hand hurts when you're writing.
Yes, and we all appreciate not having to read student handwriting.
I guess I'm guilty of that partially.
So, yeah, and I have another question too. As far as like middle school, I know in the social studies classes, the kids have used like IXLs, as usually they get 2 or 3 assigned like per week. So is that going away, or is that still staying?
We haven't made that decision yet. We'll still have IXL, but how we utilize them may look different, especially with the text that's coming in and the content knowledge that that text will have. The hope is that that would alleviate some of the IXLs that we would be doing in class, and then, or for homework. And then I know a lot of them are geography right now, but if we're weaving geography in as one of the strands, then that would be something we wouldn't have to focus solely on outside, like with the use of IXLs.
I would just say if we could get civics taught over the summer, because those one semester classes can really wreak havoc on a kid's schedule, because then you have this half, this half, this half. And I know that my child was able to like take way more high school credits because she was doing some over the summer. So if there's a way, if the state law allows for it, to offer it, or to offer criminal justice over the summer or something, so that there's opportunity to take, like she's taking 3 AP social studies classes before she graduates. So civics would muck some of the other classes up too.
Well, the intention is that all juniors will take civics and econ, so those 2 semester classes will be paired in a way that makes sense. Summer econ was initially created when, in our current system, if students are planning to take AP US history, they take that when they're juniors. They might or might not take AP Euro as sophomores, but then they have this 1 semester of econ they have to fit in somewhere. With this change in our sequence, that gap goes away. So we're actually hoping to have the majority of students take both civics and econ during the school year. We think the experience that we want to create in civics, with that emphasis on civic engagement and community participation, will not be possible to do in a summer school format.
So, but on the other hand, like if they decide to take AP government, then they still are going to be kind of like off. You know, they'd have 3
Yes.
full years, and then they'd have econ that they would want to take during the summer.
Yeah.
So a couple things. First of all, thank you. This is a very thorough report, and just to see the number of staff that have taken part in this process is really awesome, given that we're a smaller district. I think you said there were over 30 that took part in this. Couple things. I am happy to see that there's some consumable opportunities here, because as students are getting more into the technological age, they're not always having as many opportunities for the paper and pencil kind of thing. So I'm happy to hear that that's going to be there. I appreciate that you talked about the scaffolding and how there will be different opportunities to differentiate. I think that's really important. A couple things I did have as questions. One, the cost is $279,000 approximately. Is that per year, or is that an overall?
Excuse me, that's for a 6-year adoption.
That is, that compared to other adoptions we've done, I think that's probably one of the lowest I've heard. How does that compare to others that you were looking at? Was that in the ballpark, or?
Did you even get quotes from the other ones, or you quoted after you piloted?
We quoted after we piloted. Yeah.
But in terms of just like fiscal responsibility and everything, I mean, I have not heard our curriculum coming in at quite this level before. So just for everything that you shared that it offers, and I was kind of scrolling through as you were talking about the middle school, high school offerings and everything, I think there's a lot to this. So that looks great. My question is, so there are obviously staff that have not been piloting or have not been necessarily part of the process, although I'm assuming there have been conversations. What type of professional development are we looking at for our staff?
Sure. So in August, when we come back to school, that week that we have professional development, I believe it's Tuesday, we've set aside 4 hours so it depends on the level. So elementary will have 4 hours online with one of our TCI trainers, and then they will have, it's actually like 2 hours online, and then they'll have 2 additional hours like within planning with their teams. And then high school and middle school will have that same planning as well. High school and middle school also have training they need to do for the DBQ project. They are doing that over the summer, either in a virtual 4-hour course or a self-paced 30-day course, and then they're receiving curriculum pay for those hours.
I was hoping that, because a new adoption, as those of you that are teachers know, does take a lot of time and effort, and I want to make sure that our staff their time is being valued with that, so that is good to hear. You talked about the elementary component of this then too, right? Because at one point I saw that K-1 was not included in something there. I don't know if I misread that, or is everything, is this K through 12?
It is K5 through 12, okay. And we did not have any piloters at K or first grade.
Okay, great. No, I think this is looking really great. I have a passion for social studies in general, and just knowing that the state of Wisconsin obviously is looking more at the civics component of it, I think it's really great that we're getting ahead in this area too. I think that will be important. I don't know if either of our student board members have any comments about their personal experiences with the social studies program and how this might impact. I know, Noah, you'll still be here one more year, so.
I mean, as far as comments for the civics course, I think I'm going to be taking APGAP next year, so I'm excited to see what that experience is like. I agree with your sentiment that civics is something that should be taught in a classroom and can't really be done during the summer. And then I guess one question I had is like how soon that civics requirement would take place, if that'll affect senior class of like 26, or if that'll take place later.
No, the intention is for the new graduation requirement to go in to effect for next year's freshmen. Is that right? So that is the class of 2028. Both of which sound like years out of a sci-fi movie to me.
Maybe 29.
Class of 2029. Okay, class of 2029. So all of the students currently in the high school, their graduation requirements will not be affected. And we will have a transition year. What that means is we will not actually teach civics until 3 years from now, because we won't be teaching it until those students are juniors. So the students who are freshmen next year, they will take global. That's not changing. Then they will take U.S. history when they are sophomores, whether regular or AP. So that's the year we will have lots of AP US. And then the following year, so the 27-28 school years, the first year we will actually teach civics. I meant to say that earlier. Good question.
One more thing. Brian had kind of touched on this before, and I think this is a crossover with English language arts, but with the citations that they're going to be doing, are students being taught to actually go into like the MLA style, or are they using programs like MyBib and things like that, or is it a combination?
So I know the English department has has been teaching students to use MLA format. The way it typically works now is that if students are researching and finding sources through one of the online databases, like through Academic Search Premier or Gale, or there's a bunch of other ones that our amazing librarian Danielle Brannon has trained students to use, those databases will just give students the citation. So they just go to the Cite button and click from a drop-down menu what citation format they're using, and then, can copy and paste it into whatever format the teachers are requiring. So that type of research is something we don't have students doing in social studies in global or U.S. history, because it's more about, like the DBQ project is more about giving students, here's a selection of sources, primary and secondary sources that are relevant to the topic, and them, we're more concerned with their skills of using those sources, analyzing them and using them as evidence to support an argument versus searching and finding their own sources. However, in AP classes, both of my AP classes, which is Euro and AP Psych, are doing final projects right now, and that's pretty typical after the AP exam, and they're doing research, and I always have students use APA format because that's typical in the social studies world, to use APA formatting. So students get some exposure to that process.
Okay, great, thank you. That's good.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Very informative.
So this will come back for a vote at our next meeting?
So this is for your information today. We will bring it back on June 16th for a vote, and you would be approving the curricular resources. Do you have something else that you wanted to?
Yeah, just in closing, they pointed out the amazing job of Maggie and Tracy, and we'd be remiss to not point out the fact that these teachers took a lot of their time. Nobody was voluntold into the position. Everyone chose to participate, and they did a great job. They went through all these resources, and to have an alignment K-12 would be amazing. So thank you for that.
So the board will need to make a decision. In the meantime, for the next 2 weeks, there will be resources available for the public to review, both the online information that is all linked within the report, and some of the books are laid out here in the high school library, which will be accessible to the public from time to time. When the library is open, they can come in and review the resources. So there's opportunity for everyone to review them thoroughly before the board takes action to approve curriculum. The board will also need to take a look at policy should they choose to approve the curriculum and civics within the scope and sequence, so that you can approve a change in graduation requirements as a result of this adoption.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, moving on. We have the facilities report.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan, John, Sarah, Mike.
All right, so that's a tough act to follow. So this is the annual Buildings and Grounds report. Mr. Steve Coombs, our Buildings and Grounds Director, is here to share about a 5 to 7 minute presentation that we have on our important work in facilities.
Thank you. So here's the 2025 Buildings and Grounds report. Here are some established schedules and systems that we implemented in the past few years. I think the thing to take away here is the time and effort and work that it took to get all these up and running. But they are essential to our operations in the buildings and grounds. They keep us on track, and they allow us to hit our marks as we move forward, and also a great resource if we ever have to report back. One of these systems or programs we have in place is our classroom cleaning checklist. So this is an example. It's standard throughout the 5 buildings, so they all are cleaning the classrooms the same way. There's a classroom checklist, office checklist, restroom. Every area they're cleaning, there's a different checklist. It's allowed us to streamline our chemical usage also, so we got all our chemical usage down to about 5 chemicals that we use district-wide. And this is a great resource to have. if you get asked by a teacher or a community member, like, how are you cleaning the building? It's great to pull this up and have all this information to give them. So this is just an example of the classroom cleaning job card, which is on their cleaning carts. So it just has the tasks on the left side. The product is color-coded in the middle to the color of the bottle on the chemical, and then the application method on the side. So we do yearly training on these chemicals so that staff is up to date on the safety of the chemical and how to properly use it. On the bottom is the equipment needed, precautions, and then my information on the bottom if they would ever need to get a hold of me. Another system we got in place about, this is the second year now for this, is the new work order ticketing system. So I'm super proud of my team on this one. For the year, May 24 to 25, they completed 841 work tickets. We have about 39 in progress right now. So this is, it's been a great program. We're getting buy-in from the staff, my team, for updating and keeping. I think one of the main benefits of this is it keeps the requester of the work order like involved in the process, like from the time they create the work order till the time it's completed, with being able to comment on that, and it keeps them, updated on the progress. And the in-house support from our IT team has been fantastic. Another program, touch real briefly, HVAC PM program. This is done by an outside contractor, Dillett Mechanical. So they're touching each piece of equipment. I think last time I counted, we were at about 187 pieces of equipment that they're touching, from chillers, air handlers, exhaust fans, pumps, circulation pumps. So we're trying to take that proactive approach to this instead of always on the reactive side, which impacts, school. And we're always looking for new incentives through Focus on Energy. If they're offering any incentives, right now we're in the recommissioning process. That should be wrapping up sometime in July now. And that was a program through Focus on Energy. So anything we're trying to save energy, we're trying to implement that. And the main goal of the program is obviously to provide the best, learning environment for the staff and students here. This is just an example of one of the forms we get when the PM has been completed. Gives the nameplate of the piece of equipment, checking bearings, voltage, megging the motors. So we'll have 2 of these forms for every piece of equipment for a calendar year. Completed projects, 2024. It's an impressive list for last year, starting with the big high school boiler project. We did complete that. There are 3 new operational 97% efficient boilers here at the high school, up and running. So it's just, I think looking at this is what the time it takes and the planning that goes into getting these jobs done during the year, from scheduling with park and rec classes, high school classes, summer school. Really takes everybody involved to get these projects done. Summer projects for this year, I think the board was briefed on most of these. Big one that was mentioned already, J.C. Park renovation, GMS HVAC controls. We're kind of looking at that energy focus there. Big one, seal coat stripe parking lots. Another one that takes a lot of planning and scheduling to get that done. Just touch on the energy management program we have. So at the high school, on both services coming into the building. We did install dent meters. This can, we can get detailed reports of energy for specific pieces of equipment, which is super helpful when it comes to scheduling HVAC and when the chillers are going to come on. We adjusted our chiller enable set points so they won't fire below 60 degrees outside, which is a tough one this time of year with the humidity. The main thing here is the, I would say, HVAC scheduling, bringing these units on earlier in the morning, you know, taking advantage of the cooler outside air has been huge in energy savings. So this is just a report of energy savings for last year from May to May. You can see our investment for the dent meters in the service is $500 a month, but when you total that up, we saved about $20,000 just at the high school. Now, we don't have the meters installed at the elementaries or middle, but we're still implementing these procedures, you know, so the savings there are happening too. So that's it. That's what I got for you. Any questions?
Just a comment, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
The way that the entire team just keeps the buildings up and running and functional, and the cost savings alone are fantastic. I was taking a look at this over the weekend, and I was floored
Thank you. Thank
by how like up to date everything is and how efficient everything is running.
Thank you.
I'll echo Steve, under your leadership, there have been some great improvements with facilities over the years, especially the last 5 years or so. But I want to thank you and your team. You're obviously collecting data, knowing where there's areas to improve, and just really, our buildings are old in this district,
Yeah.
but they're really kept up well, and I appreciate the work that you and your staff do.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you got a great team, So.
And just out of curiosity, what would it be, obviously looking at the notes, I guess I missed part of it, that savings was just at the high school.
Yeah.
What would it take timeline, just approximately, or just even knowing what it would be to the whole district? Are we like looking at next 10 years?
I could, you know, when talking with the Data Wrangler is the company that installed the dent meters, they said it may be beneficial to install them at the middle school, the next biggest school, because that's the majority of where your main savings are going to be. The bigger the school, the more savings. The elementary schools are kind of singled out a little. There's, you know, they're kind of running. The HVAC systems there are fairly new, so they are more efficient than a lot of the big air handlers here. The majority of our savings come like on our scheduling for the auditorium, the gyms, you know, the library, NPR, larger areas that take a lot of energy to cool or heat. But if nobody's in there using them, why have the building occupied from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. when you could shut it down at 3 p.m. when the kids are out, if there's nothing in there? So, but no, definitely I could probably get a number, you know, of what it would be to do it, you know, at district-wide.
And just thanks again, because this is obviously watching every penny, appreciate all the work, and works pretty well too. So thanks.
Yep.
Jonathan, working with Steve over the last 4 years has really increased the professionalism of our maintenance team and started to document processes and procedures, which has led to the ability to increase efficiency, save money, and put them back in the classroom. And we have safe classrooms because they are handling is reducing spread of germs and viruses and things that might make kids sick in the classroom, and the climate control is important. So these are all things that were addressed in the referendum, and Jonathan and Steve have been working together to make sure that that investment is honored. So we are grateful for that.
I did have one additional question. It was something I posed to Dr. Midzik recently. We've been hearing in the news about the water situation in MPS. Have we looked into our drinking fountains in the district as to, do we have any lead issues or anything like that going on?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
No.
The last testing that we've done found no concerns regarding the water quality, specifically doing like lead testing.
Right.
You're asking?
Yeah.
And so we also work with consultant EMC. So they handle any project. Let's say like there's some asbestos that we need to remove as part of a renovation project. They would be the ones that we would bring in to make sure that we follow all the laws and rules, and also we keep everybody safe. And so we've also asked them with the uptick in questions just to make sure that we're following regular cadence that we should be within the district. And then we'll take care of getting that up to date over summer for any buildings where we would be due to do an additional test, right? And then we would share that information once that's completed. But we've found no concerns with water testing.
In the past years, no.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, have a good night.
You too, thank you.
All right, Jonathan, moving on to the 2025 district bus and vehicle replacements.
Yep, Mr. Coombs will be interested in this, so he may not leave quite yet. Maybe in the room. Maybe in the room for like a minute longer.
Front
Yeah.
center on this.
Yep. So we provided some information because this is information we haven't shared with a lot of detail with the board in my time. We've now got 14 vehicles in our fleet. Average age is 11 years old, with 2 vehicles that date back to 2000 and 2002. So those are 23 and 25 years old. And that's having a fleet that's functional is crucial so Steve can do follow up on all of those systems that he talked about, right? Focusing on that and not focusing on, challenges that we may have with maintenance on those vehicles. Within the 25-26 budget, we set aside $60,000 for vehicle replacement. We've identified the highest need being one of those maintenance trucks, the one that was the oldest from 2000, that's far exceeded its useful life, and the replacement cost for a Ford F-250 Super Duty with a plow attachment that would be needed for all the winter maintenance that we do came in at $60,394, and so that's an expense that's already allocated for 25-26. That's within the purchasing policy, and on Friday, we were actually able to negotiate additional discount with the vendor. But we do that all in line with state contract pricing to make sure that we're getting the best value that we can. So the final price should actually come in right around $58,000 and change on that vehicle. We bring this to the board because we want some feedback on direction as we consider the rest of the fleet. In particular, we identified five other vehicles. 2 special education buses are 10 and 12 years old. We have another older maintenance truck that's 23 years old, a district minivan that's 13 years old, and then a food service and maintenance box truck at 11 years old. And as we share in the report, an estimated lifespan with good maintenance would be about 12 to 15 years. And so all of these vehicles are getting close to or getting past those timelines. And so we're bringing this to the board because we've investigated additional options to address this, right? So you could take out a loan and try to purchase these vehicles proactively to address upcoming needs that you might have. And so you may take a look at that, particularly if there's concern about inflationary costs, like that we might not be able to avoid, and then if there are going to be additional costs due to tariffs. And so inflationary costs in particular, the feedback we've gotten thus far is those may hit special education buses in particular. Right now, we operate 2, what we call a minibus. So it's about a 30-passenger, a little bit lower, about a 30-passenger bus. And the 2 that we have serve different functions. And the staff member that drives has to switch between buses each morning. So it's not the optimal way that you should be utilizing those vehicles. and it's like a time logistical challenge because we have 3 different levels, high school, middle, and elementary, that individual needs to go to. So you have to like stop, get a different bus, and then continue on with your routes. So we did do initial investigation and got 1 quote for a replacement if the district were to go down to 1 bus, get it a slightly larger size at a 42 passenger, and that would really meet all of the different needs that we would have. So you'd have 1 bus. The initial quote that we have is it's very expensive for a vehicle. It's at $183,784, and that would be 1 vehicle that would be fitted. Estimated useful life would be about 15 years or 15 plus years. That would be a vehicle that would also have air conditioning in it, so it'd be temperature controlled, and thinking about the populations that we would serve utilizing that vehicle. We're at the point that we can service and maintain the 2 vehicles that we do have, but again, wanted to get some of this information in front of the board and think about how much the district should hedge against future inflationary and tariff impact now with financing options. We worked with PMA Financial to investigate different financing. The route that the board's taken in terms of using state trust fund loan is very similar to other options in total, and we can really avoid additional service fees, administrative fees of going through that process. We could run that process to get a state trust fund loan if that's something that we would need to do. So really it comes down to 2 pathways. Does the board feel like we should just continue to maintain the vehicle fleet and just on an annual basis try to replace 1 or 2 vehicles? Or should the district look at 1 or more of these vehicles and look at financing options for those so that we could lock in prices as they are today? So I'll be looking for some feedback on that. I guess before I get that feedback, anything that I missed or explained incorrectly, Steve?
No, you hit it pretty good. The bus would be a 42 passenger bus. But if it was just students, or it can carry 2 wheelchairs or 3 wheelchairs and 30 students. Okay. Each wheelchair is 4 students, it counts as per seat. So looking at the lens that way, what we were looking at doing is if a wheelchair student had to get transported for a field trip or to the high school for, their concert rehearsals or their concerts, that student could go with their class to, the event, instead of going in a different vehicle away from their classmates.
So we wouldn't need the other buses then? We would just have 1 big one?
Those 2
Just
would,
1 big
yeah, those 2 would get resold.
Right.
They would have residual value right now, and we would just use the 1 and sell the other 2.
Yeah, because she's using the one right now for 2 wheelchairs, but then her other students she drives require car seats, and they can't fit all in 1 bus physically. So that's why she'll go get the wheelchair students, then park that one, then take the other one to go get. Or if we had the bigger bus, she could just do the 1 continuous route.
So does that 183 include like the credit for the residual cost of the other buses, or no?
No, it would depend at what time they would get that completed. That particular vendor is saying about a year out. So if you put in an order today, you would have it
July
for the start of
27,
school.
yeah.
Oh.
You'd have it for the start of school a year from now. So it's a little bit difficult for us to pinpoint like what's the residual value going to be at that point in case there's like additional delays. I wouldn't want to overpromise that.
No.
But we would put that money back into, additional investment in facilities if we got that back, or other needs that we would have in the district.
Yeah.
And then another question, we have the maintenance truck in, is this section 4? Is that, I know there's 2 maintenance trucks that need to be replaced. So one of them is talked about in item number 3, and then this is the second one?
Correct. There's
Okay.
2. One's 23 years old and one's 25.
Okay.
So the way we're budgeted, we're moving forward with the 25-year-old vehicle and really need that to operate next year.
Yeah.
And so that comes the question of like how urgently we should handle the other one.
Are you trading in the vehicles to the vendor, or are you selling them when you?
We would auction them.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
There's a
We've had
public
good.
auction site that we resell.
Oh, okay.
We had good success with
Yeah.
the ball machine that was just recently replaced as we're doing some
Yeah,
of those
Wisconsin surplus.
ball field upgrades.
So if you were to auction them off, the price would probably, this is right now currently probably the best price we'd get for them, correct? Instead of more wear and tear, another year or two.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more wear and tear, the less they're worth. I don't know on the 25-year-old trucks. I think there's still people that are interested in them.
Oh, yeah.
But there's going to be less resale than on the buses. The buses would have the most
Okay.
of what we have in our fleet.
What's the cost of maintenance currently for these items approximately, or like what it would be anticipated costs? 'Cause I'm looking at trucks that are older than the students that we're servicing.
Right.
And just kind of making sure that, what is it going to be to maintenance if like the plow hitch breaks and it says the plow attachment's 13,000, are we going to be investing in 13,000 and not a new truck, and then we can't carry that
Right.
through? Or
I think that's what we're coming up with repairs on a few of the plow trucks and the buses. We're currently, right now, we're getting them fixed because that's what we have to do to maintain them. But yeah, we're running into some of those because of the age, that every time they're going in, it's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that it's taking to get those buses repaired, to get them back on the road, so.
Do you know how much we spent on maintenance last year on these?
I would have to look what
So
we had budgeted.
it varies a little bit. We can come back with that information. Like for next year, we're budgeting just within the buildings and grounds budget about $5,500. Then there's also funds that we have through special education and through the food service department. And as Steve's pointing out, like it varies, and you can have a repair that's between $3,000 to $10,000 on the box truck that we have for transport, for either of the buses. Not so much for the trucks themselves.
Right.
But
So
it's
is
increasing.
any one of these vehicles giving you more issues than the other? 'Cause in our house, one car
The
always has
buses are
problems.
currently giving us the most service needs on those. The trucks, yeah, they're not the prettiest to look at, but, I mean, they function. Yeah, when you're in the middle of a snowstorm, you don't want stuff breaking down either, you know what I mean?
And frankly,
And we're getting to that point on those two old ones.
I'm concerned about safety.
Yeah.
Because obviously safety upgrades in 20 years and 10 years have improved, and a car is a computer on wheels, and I'm not buying an 11-year-old computer. So we should have stuff that not only keeps our students safe, but our staff safe, that have, modern upgrades to, protect and help the district. But,
And since the buses are a whole year out.
I mean, the buses are a whole year out, but
Yeah.
given that the cost of things coming up soon might increase, and there are a lot of unknowns, I would
Right.
be very much in favor of going all in now with the best recommendations for financing that we can find.
The question I have is regarding these buses, has it been looked into, like outsourcing for these buses, or is it more cost-effective for us to have these buses from within?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
might-
there's two
yeah,
parts
you
of
might
that.
know
Like,
more on
it's
that.
been a challenge to consistently get those outsourced as routes. And so that's one. Bigger than that, though, is when we're able to run that as a district route, we can add on additional services and additional students. Because it isn't just the beginning and end of the day. We have other flexible programming. We have early childhood programming. And so we have one staff member and a fleet of vehicles, and we're able to get a lot of transportation throughout the day completed. And so we haven't even gone through the process of trying to cost that all out through one contracted bus, but it would be significantly more expensive to do it that way. And it's the needs for some students of their programming changes like rather fluidly. And so we get like 1 or 2 days notice. And so we try to have infrastructure in place so that we can pivot, and to say to like go to a contracted provider for a bus route, you can't move at that speed. You'd probably be going to like a ride share type service in that case. And that's also very expensive.
Because we do contract out all of our other buses with a consortium of
Correct.
neighboring school districts.
Correct.
And I know back in our day, when I went to school here, we had a whole parking lot of buses back there, but obviously that's not something sustainable for school districts anymore. So I just wanted to, because I know that those buses are used for some other things as well. Okay, thank you.
This would also open up the opportunity in the future with the larger bus for sports teams too, at the end of the day. To get them to, that end of day is challenging for busing teams to other schools while they're still doing their student routes for the day. So having that opportunity or that availability to use that, could be a benefit also.
Another question too with the special ed buses. I know the replacement cost is $183. So is this something we would like lock into when we like sign the contract? Because with everything going on, inflation and tariffs,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to lock in and then have it.
We've asked for 2 more quotes, so we would have at least 3 quotes, and there's at least 2 large providers, like manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
So once we would have 3 different quotes, we can bring that in, and then at that point, you would lock it in, even though the vehicle wouldn't come for that extended period of time.
Any other questions?
So is the guidance to go back and take a look at pricing out and considering purchasing all of the vehicles that are more than 12, 13 years old?
I would say we look at all of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yep. All.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that direction.
Thank you, guys. All right, Steve, have a good night now.
All right, thank you.
There's still budget amendments, Steve. You can still stay here.
Good now.
Yeah, I was just kidding.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay.
Farther away. Eventually just going to get out of here. All right, Jonathan, we'll kick it over to you for the budget amendments.
Yep, so this is a routine process for the board, right? So this would be standard at this time of year. We're coming back to the board because the board approved a budget and there have been changes just based on fluctuations, things that happened during the year, and we're trying to get the board up to speed so that new budget can be tweaked, right? There's nothing significant here that should be concerning to the board, but definitely able to answer questions that you would have. So we've got these adjustments broken down by different funds. Within Fund 10, which is our operational fund, we show increase to the budget for interest revenue. So we take advantage of the fact that interest rates have stayed a little bit more elevated than what the original plan was from the Fed. And then we've also had an increase to library aid, and that's another factor of higher interest rates on the operational side. Expenditures, we have a number of line item budgets within different departments and schools that have been consolidated here. We've set aside that additional library aid increase on the expenditure side. And then, as Steve had talked about, just some of the needs that we have within the buildings, we've had a number of emergency repairs. So some of those additional revenue dollars we've utilized to offset emergency fixes that we have to get heat going, to get cooling going in the buildings, to take care of last minute purchases that have gone beyond what we had in the original budget. And we kept that very tight, right? So we've got about 30,000, and that's in comparison to about $1 million that we have within that buildings and grounds budget. And then in Fund 21, which is a donations and gift fund, we're showing increase in revenue of 160,000 and an increase in expenditures of 209,000. And that just really reflects just the volume of different trips that we have running through those student activity accounts, and trying to reflect the updated cost estimates that we have. There's reserve balances in that fund that carry from year to year, and so there's plenty of fund balance for those expenditures. Within the special education fund, we've got some feedback from the Department of Public Instruction of how they'd like us to code the expenditure for the reset loan that we took out about a year ago to do that renovation. And so they're just asking us to move the expenditure from one function area to another. And that was guidance that we literally just got within the last week. And so we wanted that to be able to wrap up the budget for the year. And so they gave us that direction. Fund 39, which is our referendum debt fund, again, impact of interest rates, we're increasing the interest revenue there by $35,000. Within Fund 49, we're showing increased revenue of $44,580. That's due to a state trust fund loan for an athletic van, and then showing the same on the expenditure side. Fund 50, the food service fund. We talked a month or two ago about just our handling of the budget going into this next year. We've seen some cost increases throughout the year when we look at our food costs, and then definitely some of the maintenance costs on equipment. And so here we're showing an increase to expenses of $30,000. And at this point, we don't have the data to show an increase in revenues. So it could be that we're going to use slightly more in fund balance this year. But we did anticipate we would use fund balance because we had invested about $50,000 into a project to redo the main freezer for the food service department here at the high school. And I think those were the highlights I had. So any questions that the board has about the budget transfers, this would come back for approval at the next meeting.
Any questions for Jonathan? I'm not seeing any.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Moving on to the 2024-2025 district scorecard outcomes.
One of the main responsibilities of the board is to set strategic direction for the district and set annual goals by which we move forward on that strategy. So in August, you approved the scorecard goals. We have 10 goals that were set under 6 district priorities areas, and this is a report of how our progress is to date for the 24-25 school year. You've heard some updates along the way. The short cycle reports in November and March provided you with some updates of how we were making progress towards these, and this document is a brief narrative summary of the outcomes that were achieved. I used 3 colors. I used yellow to say we partially met those goals. I used light green to say we mostly met them, and I used dark green to say we absolutely met them. So I want to highlight a couple of the ones that we absolutely met and are in a great place on. The first one is around Educators Rising. You saw one of the things that we were looking at was increasing engagement to build a pipeline of future educators. We increased the participation in that club to 24 students. They were meeting regularly. They had 16 total meetings and were highly engaged, and you saw a presentation by them. We increased the number of students participating, and that is a great thing. The other 2 areas that we really made some great progress is around innovation. So the first is that we have established a charter plan. We applied for the grant, and while we did not receive the grant, there is action being taken to move forward and launch as a program within Greendale High School for full implementation as a charter school in the fall of 2026. That will increase revenues, increase opportunities and options for students who might be looking to do school differently than our traditional environments, and overall will provide more students coming into the district who have either left to look for other options or are not engaging in school right now. And then we established the board finance committee. The board was able to do that, and the committee started meeting in March. They're meeting monthly and have provided you feedback along the way. The area that we have mostly met, but we don't have all of the final data on yet, but the initial information that we're getting from internal common assessments are showing great growth. 7 of the 9 grade levels are showing that they will have made a 10% increase in achievement if the preliminary assessments and classroom-based assessments that are aligned to standards bear fruit on the standardized assessments that were given this spring. So we will give full report on that data, the statewide assessment data, when we do our, when it's released. It may be August, it may be September, not sure yet. When they tell us that we can release that data, we will, and we will do a full academic benchmarking report to share that information. But what we're seeing is that 7 of the 9 grade levels made that significant increase that we were looking at. Then there was the 2 areas that I just want to highlight around partially meeting, the expanding the community connections to pilot those community-based circles so that the community had an opportunity to see what it looks like to build those relationships that would be beneficial across. We did offer 7 different opportunities. Someone asked me today about 4 Heritage Months. We only had 3 Heritage Months events. I did include All the World at Highland View, which is not a Heritage Month, but it is there, so it is part of it. The reason that we partially met is that our target was 200 participants across all events, and we fell short of that target with 126 community members, but we do think that 126 are unique, not the same people participating 7 times because of the location and the participation and attendance. Those are mostly unique experiences, so that's a great thing. And then one of the areas that we had around engaging was podcasts, and our survey of families indicated that they are having their communication needs met, and there's not a demand for an audience of a podcast of parents and families. The video series, Why I Teach, continues to be in production and is being focused on, but we had some conversations with some student groups who said it would be great to have podcasts around some of our activities at the high school. So we've started to have conversations about DECA taking the lead on producing podcasts around activities in the fall. So we will be working on that. Noah, did you get elected to an office?
This year I'm serving as our co-president for the Greendale chapter. So I'll give you more updates on the podcast as I get more information.
So that is something that we will be advancing and moving forward. And I'm happy to take some questions on any of these, but these goals, when finalized at the end of June, will be part of my evaluation, since that is one of your other responsibilities is to evaluate the superintendent. So.
You did say there's an opportunity for the Greendale Global to reapply for that grant for next year?
That is correct.
Okay.
So we received 25 points on our application, and it requires 35 to be funded. And they gave us a lot of feedback and also said, we believe that wholeheartedly that you will be funded in year 2. Please consider reapplying, and we can support you and review your grant application before it gets submitted. So we expect to see greater success next year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the open enrollment update.
So the board approves open enrollment seats for the regular open enrollment application period in January per state statute. And at the time that we make enrollment projections in January, we are anticipating and projecting the potential for students coming in from the private schools or changes to resident enrollment. And some of those enrollments have not manifested the numbers that we were expecting. And so we are bringing forward a potential for open enrollment, additional open enrollment seats for the board to consider. And if the board is looking to do that, it would be something that you would take action on at the June 16th meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie to talk through where we are looking at some open space available for additional students in the district.
So in compliance with board policy, we looked again at our projections, our enrollment projections, and where our actual numbers are coming in at this time of year compared to January when we were making those projections. So included the same information in the report that we looked at back in January with regards to the amount of open enrollment transfer aid per pupil. And we have 35 open enrollment students graduating this June. The board has already taken action in January to approve new seats, and these projections that we're looking at tonight do encompass those new seats being filled in addition to the resident students and returning open enrollment students that would be attending next year. So when we look at our special education seats available, our projections there remain the same, that we do not have capacity for special education seats based on our staffing and capacity for special education supports. When we look at the regular education seats that we have available, our updated projected enrollments are outlined in the report, making seats available at kindergarten with 8 seats. New seats would be offered. At 4th grade, we would have 6 seats available, 5th grade, 3 seats, 6th grade, 6 seats, 3 seats at 8th grade, and 7 seats at 9th grade. So again, that's just based on that total grade level capacity across the district. This report tonight is for the board's information and any questions that you may have, and then would come back at the next meeting for approval.
When we say capacity, there is a range in capacity, and the capacity that we are filling to is the bottom. So if the class size target is 18 to 23, we'd be filling to have 18 per class. And so that's what you see with the projections. So for example, at 4th grade, the class size targets are 23 to 28. So when we say there's 7 sections of 4th grade with the capacity of 23 in each section, that is where we're coming up with the number. And if we're below that number, that's where we're adding seats. So we're not filling to the top end, we're filling to the bottom end.
And that's to primarily if we have movement into the district wanting to be conservative, is that right?
No, that is our policy, because we don't want to have top end of target class sizes with no capacity. So we have a range of class size targets. We fill to the bottom. That does give us some flexibility should there be changes in enrollment over the course of the year.
One question I had for you, Julie, and these reports are always excellent. I appreciate the time that goes into these with all the deadlines that you have to work with and everything and constraints. Have we ever had openings for special education since open enrollment began, or it's not fully funded, so I can't imagine that we can be filling those seats when we already are not funded?
It's a funding issue, but it's also a staffing and capacity support issue, and so we staff according to what student needs are. And if there were a decline in that, we would make staffing adjustments to account for that student decline. Sure. So yes, it's a funding issue in terms of the number of staff that are available to provide for those student needs.
Okay, thank you.
And then how likely do you think we'll hit the open enrollment targets? As our,
like how likely are we to fill those available seats? That is something that we look at in terms of the number of applications, and based on that, I think we would probably get close to being able to fill the 33 seats just based on the demand and number of applications that have come in. There may be some that wouldn't fill, but we would probably fill a majority of them.
Our kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade seats for sure have a wait list that's long enough that those would fill, and the others are likely to fill based on wait list. There might be one grade level where the wait list would be exhausted and we would not fill seats.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. All right, Kathy, legislative update.
All right, I'll make it brief. There is a new bill circulating that would keep current enrollment caps for the state's parental choice programs. This is circulating right now. Under the current law, only a maximum of 10% of school districts' total membership can be eligible for a voucher to attend a participating private school. However, these enrollment caps are set to expire after the 25-26 school year. This bill would actually remove what's called the sunset clause in law to continue these limits in perpetuity. There is a Senate committee to vote on tribal relations package regarding tribal regalia that they were just looking into, let me just see if I can find it. It was a package to just determine allowing pupils to wear tribal regalia at graduation and other school events. I don't know if we've ever had any issues with that, Dr. Midzik, but and then requiring school districts to collect and report certain information regarding Native pupils in their district, and amending the teacher requirements for tribal languages. So those bills were previously passed by the Assembly in March, and there'll be more to come on that. And then there is a mental health care is healthcare package that's being circulated right now by the Democrats in Madison. This package includes several bills that are aimed at increasing access to funding and, for mental health services in schools. And the fact that this is kind of a partisan bill at this time, there is a chance that it's unlikely to generate any headway. However, the size and depth of the package includes student mental health to be a major priority in this next upcoming budget. So whether these priorities will be included in whatever compromise is eventually reached is still remains to be seen. And that's pretty much it for now.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any board committee updates?
I just have one for the CISA annual meeting came back. They did complete the elections for the new Board of Control members. They did make a note for celebrating 60th anniversary of CISA in Wisconsin this year. That was a big focus for a lot of, they're kind of focusing on a lot of the summation of the numbers and looking at how many kids they've touched in that time period. Also, they wanted to encourage, they have the new updated office for workshops, and just kind of as a point, last year they had 180 workshops and events virtually and in person, but a lot of their new facilities out in, I think it's Pewaukee is the official address. It's a lot of updated technology in that area, so it was easy to broadcast and easy for them to do those online and in-person presentations. And they also made note to encourage that any CISA member can rent that room at a nice cost for any sort of presentation or a community event. So just kind of stressing that as a, they're like, if you want to get away and have a conversation, they're more than open to help host your events or any teaching exercises as well.
Thank you. I attended the village board meeting last week, and I just want to give an update to the community. There will be a public presentation and listening session on Thursday night at Highland View School from 6:30 till 8 p.m. The county and the County Historic Society presented the needs of Trimborn Farm, and it is a site that we use for our field trips here, even in Greendale, but it's mostly because it is right in the heart of a neighborhood that I have asked for there to be public input. I'm having surgery tomorrow, but I do anticipate that I will be there virtually on Thursday. But I encourage everyone to be there, especially those that live in that particular area of Greendale, to have a voice in what's going to happen with the future of Trimborn Farms.
All right, thank you.
I went to a super fun Milkman game on Saturday with the Greendale Education Foundation, and we had a blast. And big kudos to Alex Skibicki for going in the dunk tank and getting dunked and dunked and dunked and dunked. And
I'm glad I
we had
didn't
a
volunteer.
Yeah, right. And Frank D'Amato was out there. Oh, just try again. Just try again. Just so Alex really got it. But lots of community volunteers, lots of participation. So thanks to the Education Foundation for arranging that. And everybody should go to Schools Out because that is going to be fun.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Does anyone have any professional development to share? Negative. All right. Moving on to the board calendar.
The next 2 weeks are jam-packed with end-of-year activities. I mentioned a number of them in communications, but most importantly, there are graduation ceremonies and events next week. So Tuesday at 5:30 is the 8th grade promotion ceremony and celebration. And then Saturday, the 14th, is graduation at Gavinsky Stadium at 11 a.m., where all board members will be present. And then we have the honors breakfast for seniors on Wednesday morning June 11th. I think it starts at 7:30 a.m., where there'll be a number of scholarship presentations, and Board Finance Committee on the 12th. And of course, as was mentioned, school's out, and the J.C. Park ribbon cutting ceremony on the 11th.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from visitors? No. That's right. I'll make a mental note of that next time. All right, we'll adjourn. Next meeting is June 16th.
Thank you. Are you stifling public?